Welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm your host, Ellen Barrett, and we have a great show for you today. And we are starting off this episode talking about making beer and wine at home. This is Ben Feifarek, and he's with the Wine and Hop Shop over on Monroe Street. If you've visited him before, he's the owner over there. Thanks for being with us today, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
So my first question is just because I'm assuming that making wine and beer at home has to be extremely difficult. Is that true? Is it hard?
It's not as hard as people think.
Yeah.
I think when people first go into making beer or wine, their first thought is like, oh, it's magic or whatever. And then when you're done making it, especially making beer, you're like, wait, that's it? That's basically like making soup.
Right.
I'd say, to make a truly exceptional beer or wine takes a lot of skill, a lot of practice, probably years of practice. But
right.
If you can make spaghetti, you can make beer at home.
I love that idea of comparing it to cooking, because when you're cooking, you have, all of your different items that you're going to use. You have all your different utensils and things, and whether it be an oven or stove. And if you think of it like that, of accomplishing it like that, I think it doesn't seem as scary, because as long as you have the ingredients and the tools, it should go okay, in theory.
For sure, yeah. And that's, one thing when people ask, like, what do I need to do to make really good stuff is, much like cooking, using fresh quality ingredients, following a good recipe, keeping everything clean, being good with sanitation. You do those three things, you're going to make good beer.
So is it expensive then? That would be my second question.
It's not as expensive, I think, as what I think people think it's going to be. At the Wine and Hop Shop, we sell starter kits for making beer and wine. Many of them start under $100, and that's going to include pretty much everything you're going to need to make that first batch. And then from there on, I'd say a typical batch of beer is going to cost about $35, and each batch makes about 2 cases of beer, so you're looking at under $1 a bottle.
Wow.
That's not so bad.
Very cool. And then you kind of, have that personal touch to say you made it, which is priceless, I suppose.
Heck yeah, for sure.
So how long does it take to to make a batch of beer or a batch of wine?
Batch of wine is going to take longer, with the higher alcohol content. The aging process is going to be a lot longer. I'd say with whites, probably looking at anywhere from 3 to 9 months. Reds, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. And
Wow.
That's not all work. I mean, almost all that is just sitting around waiting. But it depends on your palate. If you like your wines a little brighter or a little more smooth. For beer, it's about a month, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Brew day is going to be about 2 or 3 hours of work, then 2 weeks of fermentation where you're hands off. Bottling day is going to be about an hour, hour and a half. And then generate the carbonation in the bottle is going to be about 2 weeks. So from the minute you start to the minute you're drinking, about 4 to 5 hours of work and 4 or 5 weeks of waiting.
That first beer or first wine, after you've put that much time into it, has just got to taste great. It's just got to taste fantastic with all of that hard work.
It really does. And, that's actually a question we get a lot at the shop is, is this going to taste any good?
Right.
And, again, much like cooking, just when you do it yourself, it's just going to taste better. But, especially with beer, freshness matters quite a bit, especially if you like hoppy beers. The hop aroma is one of the first things to go. So, if you make your beer yourself, you're drinking it really fresh.
Right.
And so it's going to be really, really good. Again, like I said, if you follow a recipe, go to sanitation, you can make really good beer. And one advantage that homebrewers have today that they didn't used to have is now that homebrewing is becoming a bigger and bigger industry, we have access to the exact same ingredients that the big breweries do. So we're using the same grains, the same hops, the same yeast that they are. So we really can make as good or better beer, which is really exciting. Which
kind of leads me to my next question of, why is it important to buy locally rather than buy the equipment and what you need online?
Sure, I'd say there's a few reasons.
Sure.
One is, again, back to the cooking, is the freshness and the quality of ingredients. Like if you come into the Wine and Hop Shop, we've got an entire room just dedicated just to grain. I think we have 125 different types of grain.
Sure.
That people can utilize, and so you can come in, you can smell them, you can taste them, so you have a really good idea of what is going into your beer, what kind of flavors and aromas. We have free samples of beer, wine, and soda that we've made that we put on tap, so you can go in and sort of get an idea of like, oh, that's a really cool tasting beer. I want to try and make that, or Another thing is the just the community, like home brewing and just brewing in general is
Yeah.
a really strong community. And so coming in and bouncing off ideas, either us or one of my favorite things is when customers start talking to each other and, like, well, this is how I accomplish this, or
Right.
this is how I solve this problem, and people start exchanging
Awesome.
ideas, and I think that's great. You save money on shipping, you don't have to pay shipping, and
Absolutely.
just like shopping local with anything, that when you spend money locally, it stays in the community, which I think makes your community stronger.
Great to shop local. Again, the Wine and Hop Shop over on Monroe Street. Be sure to check them out. Thanks for being with us today, Ben.
Well, thanks for having me.
We appreciate it, and we'll be back with more Talk of the Town right after this.